Okay, so it's currently updating itself. It's great. Oh fuck, it does... Can I close this without shutting off some music? Okay. What music is this? Disu Firoua. Random frontier monster, anyway. Whatever. This will serve as background. Anyway, just testing something. Okay, it's actually streaming what I want to write. Okay. So... what would it look like? I have no idea. So what would be the intro? What does it talk about? Popularity poll. I think it was in December. Something like that, so... December. With results in March. Oh, I do remember this OST actually. Well, I haven't fought the monster, but I do remember it now. It just takes a while to actually get going. I want to... I don't know how good the audio is, because my mic is always fucking up. I'm just going to do that, fuck it. This will sound awful. So with results in March, and Iodrome was among the lowest ranking monsters. Question? Is Iodrome the truly worst monster across the Monster Hunter roster? What are the different criteria? Because I believe that the different criteria are almost as interesting as the poll itself. In fact, the poll is not very interesting. So I'm going to list off IDs here. I don't know if it's the best thing, but whatever. So like there must be a way to say that. But basically, the idea is this: the poll was made with a simple goal in mind. Display which monster is considered the most favorite. I'm going to write it this way because I know you can rewrite that. It's just late evening, so I'm not going to bother. What this implies, however, is that it implies that a good monster may not be selected simply because an other monster is better. It's not a broad popularity lists, and therefore the lowest monsters aren't necessarily the least popular, but the least likely to let's say an absolute fan. Oh my god, do I have an ad? I have an ad for Hero Wars. Fuck off. I need to add a... What the fuck is that arrow? No, fuck it. I need to add a... What's this called? An ad blocker to my to this browser. Wait. Okay, that's weird. The live broadcast stops for some reason on my own end. Anyway. So, with that in mind, what makes a monster low on that specific kind of popularity poll? And there is the more interesting part, in my opinion. Because there's clearly like a lot of what I would call the biases. So can we categorize? It's possible to find different categories or for what makes a monster popular. I'm repeating myself, I know, but like I can rethink that sentence. That's not the issue. The better thing is to write it in the first place and acknowledge that it's not the best sentence. Let's say that monsters have different traits regarding they have different traits that will either positively impact their presence, their positioning, their overall opinion. So, positive traits. So, what now I can think about what is considered a positive or negative trait for a monster, and include what I call the biases. So the first is recency bias, which, even if there is something quite interesting with the recency bias, because it doesn't always work in the favor of a monster, but I think it's still more likely to give them a better chance of ranking higher, because what that recency bias is, did that monster appear in 5th gen? Because if a monster appears in 5th generation, it means that the most amount of people will have voted. And in fact, this reminds me of a... I'm going to add a line very below, which is random ideas. Things that I did not fit, but I definitely need to think about, which is what does the average voter would look like? Which I suppose you can... I suppose you can drop hints about it throughout the thing, like for example, Monster Hunter is much more appreciated in Japan compared to the rest of the world. Therefore, there's probably going to be a Japanese bias in the popularity poll, where the Japanese player base might be disproportionately represented compared to the rest of the players, because you would be more likely, like for example, let's say that worldwide 10% of every person who played one Monster Hunter decided to vote, and in Japan it would be like, I don't know, 40%. Basically, people who can make a Capcom ID account and vote. Well, obviously, even if there are still more votes from overseas in lower ranked monsters, it's going to be much more of Japan opinion. Basically, Japan's opinion is going to matter more because there's simply more Japanese who would do that. Again, there's like no data on that. Which one is it? Let's skip this one. Volcanic Hollow? Chaotic Gore? I'm down for Chaotic Gore. Like, I have no idea what the average voter would look like, but I can make an educated guess, I suppose. That's what you call that. So yeah, the average voter. Also, like, something that you can mention in the recency bias is 5th gen games have been bought by more people, and therefore you don't have you're more like a monster is more likely to be known about if it appeared in 5th gen. A monster that did not appear in 5th gen is going to be a negative trait, and I'm going to add that now. So a negative trait is non-appearance in 5th gen. which is also technically part of recency bias. So I suppose I think I should write it another way, but like whatever. So another positive trait is simply monster appearance. A good-looking monster is going to be a positive trait. What else? Like, I know I'm not covering much about the monster appearance, but I feel like there's not much to explain. People know what a good-looking monster is, and it's not. Let's cut something out of this discussion, which is that. Which would be the idea of, oh, this monster doesn't make sense, no one is going to vote for them, because that's bullshit. No one gives a shit about how those monsters are, how accurate those monsters are, because like, who gives a shit about Zinogre having non-explainable electricity? No one, because he looks like a Thunderwolf and people like Thunderwolf, so... Again, like, monster appearance is still going to be like a big bias, honestly. Because it's a big bias for two reasons. The first reason is going to be obviously people like monsters that look good. But more importantly, the second one, well, the second one would be less important, but it's still important nonetheless, which is that if you've never played an older game, the only reference point you have for those monsters is just looking at their picture on the website. And so, if they are not displayed in if they are not displayed correctly, they may get less votes from people who do not know much about them. Like, some monsters as a picture are just not that appealing. And also sometimes it's straight up some details that are removed. For example, maybe some people find Crimson Fatalis uninteresting and don't know about the fact that in 4 Ultimate there is a Super Crimson Fatalis in G rank. And obviously there would be a big impact there because, well, I don't know, maybe the fact that it's flamier would be cooler, I don't know. But it certainly impacts it one way or another. Oh, we got a nice one, Ancient Legend. I'm going to add this one because I've thought of it now, but beam status. I know it's kind of weird, but a very memeable monster is also going to be up. And that's like one good example of a meme status carrying a monster, which is Vespoid Queen. Vespoid Queen has like... where was she? Let me check. She was like in top 100, that's insane. She was number 82. But now I'm get reminded of another bias, which is monster type. Because turns out you don't have bird wyverns in the top 50, I think. Like, let me look at it. Let me look at everything. You know what? I'm going to count them. How many of each thing we got? I'll put it here next to the random ideas. So, top 50. So, Fanged Wyvern. Elder Dragon. And the last one is Leviathan. And I'll add after, so... I don't know why I'm putting that here. Okay, so let's check. So... Why did it close? Fuck off, you really, like... Why would you do that to me? You know what, I'm going to do that. No, I don't want that to be stretched. I want to be... Okay, is it fucked? Okay, it came back correctly. Anyway. Oh, and it actually shrinks the right way. So, 2 Elder Dragons, 3 Elder Dragons, and 1 question mark, which is also an Elder Dragons, because let's be real, Gormagala in the eyes of many would be a Elder Dragon. Nagakuga is Flying Wyvern, so Flying Wyvern. Flying Wyvern. Fatalis, Nergigante, well, Runa Nergigante, Alatrion, Stygian Zinogre, Abyssal Gaiacrus, Primordial Molzino, Old Fatalis, Mizutsune. I think one of the next is Namiel. Okay, Safijiva, Namiel, so 10 Elder Dragons. Brachydius, which is a Brute Wyvern. I did not notice that Brachydius was the highest ranking Brute Wyvern. Which shocks me because I don't like it. I don't know why I wrote Gormagala instead of 1. What is that? Oh, most of the stories. Okay, whatever. So I did count Namiel, Shagaru, Magala, Crimson Glow. Okay, so... Okay, now that I have more monsters per page, it's going to be easier, so... Rathalos, so 2 Flying Wyverns. Raging Brachydios, so 2 Brute Wyverns. Tigrex, so 3 Flying Wyverns. And then Fanged Beasts. 1, because there's Furious Rajan. Brute Wyvern number 3, Glavenus. Flying Wyvern number 4, Bolt Reaver. Question mark number 2, Chaotic. And then the last 3 are Elder Dragons, so 15 Elder Dragons. Next. So... Third Fanged Wyvern, though it's kind of funny because the first 2 are like Zenogres, and the third one is Dodogama. 5th Flying Wyvern with Gezu, another Elder Dragon with Reason Crimson Glow. Okay. Neopteron. Which is number 1, which is Atalka. Number 6, Flying Wyvern, Yankut. No! Flying Wyvern. Bird Wyvern. I nearly made a big mistake, but thankfully it's the first one. So, number 6, Bloodbath. L Blade, so number 4, Brute. Malzino Kirin, so 2 Elder Dragons. Devil Joe. Odogaron, so number 4. Savage Devil Joe, so 6. Xenojiva, so 19. Aegontor, Astalos, Espina, so that's 3 Flying Wyverns. Kushai so that's 20 Elder Dragons. Soulseer, so that's going to be a 4th Leviathan. Kulv and Scorn, so Scorn is going to be there, and Kulv is going to be there. Okay. So now I can come back to monster type. In the top 50, there seems to be a bit of a bias. Turns out, Elder Dragons are very popular, and therefore a low-ranking monster. Oh, it's Gulftaroth. Phase 1 is boring. That's better. So yeah, there's a bias towards Elder Dragons, and as such it's like like monster type just impacts it. Like you have to compete with Elder Dragons, so I suppose monster type would be more neutral, and I suppose that thing with positive and negative trait is not really that relevant because a lot of them are just neutral. But like there are some stuff that's always going to be sort of good, and there are some stuff which are not going to be sort of bad or going to be more neutral. I suppose it's a neutral trait. It doesn't impact both positive and negative, but you can't really say. I suppose monster type would be one, but it's like very weird to describe. It's not exactly a positive. Whereas for this recency bias, it does make sense. Because a more modern monster is just going to be known by more people. And people therefore have way more tools to discern whether they think it's worth or not for them. A big negative trait is going to reiterate on that, which is I'm going to call it all last appearance, which is basically everything that's before GU. Because typically, even though GU doesn't have as many sales, GU I think has, I believe, 5 million sales, which is lower than B-Third. And B-Third only released in Japan, so you know. So basically, any monster that did not appear before generations, because that's where you land into some really old shit that's not going to be popular, and that's a negative trait. A negative trait would be frustrating fights. But that's going to be, like, this is going to be a big minus, but this is not. Because a lot of people, I think, even shit fight, they'll still consider good monster. Because, like, you cannot tell me that this many people enjoy actually fighting Zinogre, and they just enjoy the appearance of Zinogre, the feeling of powers that it emits. So I think the trait system is not great. It does something that it does exacerbate some stuff, but I don't think it works for a script. I mean, it would work if it was more clear-cut traits. It would work if it was more clear traits, but currently I think I can reword that better. Because basically I wanted to do a list of biases and a list of traits. But I think I should have, I need to do the biases first and then fit traits within those biases. Because, yeah, so basically let's talk about biases. So a biases is going to be recency. There's going to be something else. There's going to be appearance. There's going to be armor sets, weapons, fights. I suppose appearance is not exactly... I think I'm going to go more with looks. I'm going to put two things, looks and appearance. And appearance I'm going to set it here. So it's kind of up in the air because turns out there's a lot of things that can be said about recency and appearance, but I think as an idea they are quite similar. And you know what? Because I have no idea on what to do, I'm going to talk about Iodrome. So where does Iodrome fit? What goes wrong for Iodrome and what would go right? So Iodrome is like actually surprising thing because I'm going to call another one which is bias of frequency. So let's explain the bias of recency, appearance and frequency. Recency is like quite obvious. If a monster appeared in 5th gen, it's more likely to be known about. So that's the thing. And also I'm going to add it, which is a very weird bias, but that's very convenient to explain some stuff, which is context. Contextual bias is something. I'll come back to it after. So, recency bias, a monster that appeared recently, so like, let's say World, Iceborne, Rise, Sunbreak, will fit in here, and will have a better ways to be more interesting to people than a monster that never appeared in newer gen. So no one gives it, not that many would have given a shit about Gravios. Because you don't fight Gravios in 5th gen. The only thing you see of Gravios is its skull on the Shogun Senator's back. And also Celtus and Celtus Queen are just non-existent in 5th gen, so obviously no one is going to remember them. Appearance... what the fuck is that one? Oh, it's Murudomonto. I want him to explore, by the way. I really want this monster to be there. Okay, so maybe when I wrote appearance, I meant frequency. But anyway, like it's a vague idea, and honestly, like I'm going to put parentheses to check. But basically, what I mean by that is that a monster that appeared frequently in the past is technically going to be better than a monster that's going to appear once. That bias is not going to be very important, because seeing a monster multiple times isn't going to make them necessarily better, but a regular monster will always have that kind of thing where people are happy to see it or not. And typically, like, appearance and frequency, Zinogre, ever since its inception, has appeared in literally every game. It did not appear in Base World, I think, but I think that's about it. Ever since Portable Third, he has appeared in every single fucking game. So yeah. So there's actually surprisingly good traits, such as it appeared frequently, not locked to G rank, which is another thing. So, oh yeah, right. This gives me the opportunity to talk about context, because there's another little creature which also suffers from a bad context for this monster, which kinda would make you think that the recency bias is bullshit, but actually no, because it just shows you that recency bias is not as strong as you would think, and contextual bias probably is equal or not stronger. And that monster is Biotodes, because if you look at it this way, this is Leviente Phase 3, whatever. If you look at it this way, Biotodes is not technically a bad monster at all. It's like considered usually the best design wyvern in Iceborne. It has a rather cool design, being a fish that swims in snow and attacks you with a big ass horn. That's cool. It has decent armor that's very useful for the traits it have, but Biotodes is among the lowest. So what happened to him? And that's pretty simple. It's the exact same reason why Desert Celtus was this low, is the fact that it's a monster that only appeared at the beginning of G rank, and that's a death sentence for many monsters to be in such situation. Because if you appear at the beginning of Master rank, like, no one is going to fight you, especially in an older game. There's a reason why so many of these monsters... Lafiante is too distracting, let's put something else. Okay, Bamboo Forest Knight. Fuck it, let's go. So, a weak monster that only exists in a G rank expansion and only at the beginning is going to be crushed, basically. You won't get the opportunity to appreciate that monster at its fullest potential. Which is why I think Sunbreak did the right thing by making the first monster that you fight in Sunbreak a returning monster, because it's Daimyo Ermitor. And I think that's an interesting direction to go in with, because Daimyo is going to be first of all, it's a very interesting monster because it's going to be completely unique compared to everything you've seen. And also, it's not going to, I mean, they don't care about it. It was like a nice addition for them. But they're just not going to care that much about a monster not sticking the landing, because he's just what he is. Like, he's just going to be Daimyo Ermitor, and you don't have to introduce Daimyo Ermitor, you only have to introduce it to newer people. And because he already has a specific appearance, like, he has many traits that would make him interesting. So I think it doesn't risk much being the first monster, but other monsters, like, if you think about most of the a lot of generic exclusive monsters from older games are going to be screwed, and master rank monsters that appear early also are going to be screwed. I need to check where Ben Barrow is. I think Ben Barrow suffered less than Piototus, because, like, contextually, Piototus is so fun just because it stuck to the beginning of the Allfrost Reach. It doesn't go further than this. Ben Barrow is, like, fairly okay. It's still in the latter half, I think. How many is there? It's like 240? It's 220, so yeah, it's in the latter half. But Ben Barrow did not suffer nearly as badly as Piototus, because Ben Barrow wasn't locked to the early Allfrost Reach because he went everywhere. And, like, an additional nail in the coffin with this Piototus existence is the fact that Piototus doesn't even appear in Guiding Lands. Like, it's so sad. So yeah, context absolutely matters. And, like, if you think about let's pick every game that I can think of. So Freedom Unite, no one gives a shit about Terra Shogun Senator, no one gives a shit about Copper Benganga, no one gives a shit about Yamatsukami. I mean, for Yamatsukami it's like less going to be a problem, but for the other two, it's absolutely going to be one. And then if you look at Tri-Ultimate, Rust Ramboros is a non-monster, and in fact it's not surprising to see that Rust Ramboros is 222nd next to Piototus. Like, come on, it's so sad. But yeah, like, it's stuck like that, and like Desert Celtus and the Ashkechawacha. I want to see Ashkechawacha. I think it's 215. Like, it's basically those G-Rank exclusive monsters that are especially weak are most likely to be just completely forgotten, and yeah, they absolutely suffered from that. And so, contextually, well, Iodrome doesn't suffer from that because it has appeared frequently, because it has appeared in like every Gen 1 game, so which is less relevant, and even every second gen game, and he appeared twice in 4th gen. He appeared in technically 4 times. He appeared in 4th ultimate, generation's ultimate. So appearing in 4th gen means that it's less likely to be forgotten, simply put. But unfortunately, Iodrome is ugly. And that brings me to another point, which is again another random idea I'm going to put, because I do not know how to organize this. But that other random idea is going to be that what does a monster compete with? Competes with less frustrating monsters, because like that's Disufura, but this time it's going to be phase 1. I'm tired of Frontier. And this one is like one of the worst. I'm so pissed. Okay, the random picker is like kind of bugged, so let's just take something random. Let's say I take this one. So anyway, monster competition can go on several aspects, and that's going to be a significantly important aspect, because, well, you have to have several monsters competing with each other if you're going to make a popularity poll where, by definition, there's only going to be one winner. And if we think about Iodrome, among the dromes, is going to be the most frustrating because poison is very annoying to deal with. Also, he has bad hit zones. Iodrome's hit zones are like kind of awful. Like, they're not completely garbage. It's not Red Helm Hazuro's level of garbage, but it's still quite bad. It's a pack hunt, which automatically, like, pack hunts are usually not well regarded, because again, in the context of all gen, it's going to be more frustrating to deal with the small monsters. Awful armor sets, like, the problem is that you don't really have that many skills with those armor sets for Iodrome, and that's absolutely weighing against it. So like, if I look at Iodrome, because Iodrome so first of all, you've got the suit, which is going to give you fate. And the actual armor gives you antidotes and perception. I'm talking about the G version. Perception is capture ready. So like, these kind of skills are not that relevant. The armor sets, honestly, like, in terms of skills, Like, if you want something that resists poison, you'd rather go Gypsaros than to go Iodrome, because Gypsaros is an actual fight instead of Iodrome. Not particularly the interesting, I mean, I suppose flashy design, because the problem with Iodrome's armor is that it's based on Gen 1 armor, and the problem with is that Gen 1 armor is a lot of medieval armor mixed in with it's going to be medieval armor mixed in with monster parts, and the drones look all the same. Every fucking drone looks the same. And I suppose the red is nice, but it's unfortunately not that great. But it's mostly the skills. At least looking at the EX armor set, it does have some interesting stuff. It's just very specific interesting stuff because it has fire resistance and guts. God, they managed to make the Iodrome X version still terrible for the suit armor. For the regular armor, they just remove the bad traits and give you boost to status, which is like not that relevant. The GX version, it gets boost to elemental damage, which is great if you omit the fact that in order to make the skill elemental great, you need to have fire attack, or well, element attack next to it. So overall, the armors are not particularly pretty, and they have very lackluster skills. So, and on top of that, not that great of weapons, both in design and utility. Because typically Iodrome, like every drone, every Birdwyvern drone weapon is going to suck, but they usually have like very limited design as well. So let me see, I need to have... I'm going to go back to the long rank Iodrome. That's the Iodrome head. Can it be used for a weapon? I mean, the weapons do have an interesting design, but they are usually very weak with bad sharpness, which not a lot of people will like. Like, if you look at fucking... what's the Deadly Serpent blade? Okay. Like, let's look at the greatsword. The Iodrome greatsword, the last version of it kept out that blue sharpness. It does get white if you invest in it, but the problem is that this in early game is going to be completely useless for greatsword, but that's like more of an issue of greatsword. But the problem is that for most weapons it's still going to be useless because you're probably going to have a better option. that better option might be Gypsaros weapon, which usually have higher poison, or Raytheon weapon, which usually have better raw, or later, if you're just going to compete with fucking Chameleos, which is going to be infinitely better. Even though, like, I suppose 290 is okay, but like, it's not that great either. So yeah, the weapons aren't great. No appearance in 5th gen. I think my ideal end to the video, and what the fuck is that music? What's not the stories? Let's not listen to that. Okay, I like that. Is categorizing the and the lower end of the popularity poll. And basically, it would be using everything that's done before to describe what led to that popularity poll ending the way it is, and simply have tools to justify monsters not being great. Which, in a sense, would not need Iodrome, but Iodrome is like a very nice entering point for that, I suppose. I'm going to call it alternate form competition. Because, like, yeah, I would scroll to Steel Uragan. Why Steel Uragan? Again, not popular. Last appeared in Tri-Ultimate. Not particularly amazing design-wise. Mildly interesting fight. And that's basically it with an interesting armor set. If you look at Desert Celtas, the justification is going to be simply all gen monsters stuck in G rank, stuck in early G rank. I think these two traits can be separated. Oh, Negigante. Apex Azuros is going to be simply awful fight, and it would fit in alternate form competition, but not with Azuros, but with Red Helm, which sadly Red Helm is also like one of the worst rated deviants, but even as a deviant, it is not as bad as Apex Azuros. Apex Azuros is like so surprising because that monster has very low trait. It's not an original idea. There's a better version that exists. It's horribly frustrating in the game that it exists in, and the gear it's tied to is dog shit because it's no longer relevant in Sunbreak. The monster is like, every Apexes are doomed to suffer, and Apex also has like so few redeeming qualities. Like, honestly, the fact that it's 226 might just be because it's down to a couple of boats with Iodrome and Desert Sultas and Steel Oregon. I don't think it's like it must be in that same boat, honestly. Aurora Somnacant. That's complicated, and that's because Somnacant is also like quite low, I believe. It's 197. It's basically Aurora Somnacant. It competes with a subspecies for the same idea, and if it's my correct assumption, I suppose, I mean, I guess the Japs would not care because there's like two kinds of yokai that it represents. There's that one yokai which is a woman in swimming on her back in a river, and the other one is the Yuki Onna, I think, which is like some sort of ghost. You see Frostlass in Pokemon, that's based on the Yuki Onna, and maybe the idea would have been to have Aurora Somnacant be like that. Okay, I need to go be right back. So, I suppose it's not the greatest thing, but like, I think also it's simply a bias of the fact that there are some very good monsters that released with Sunbreak, and that Aura Somnacant wasn't one of them. Great Baggy, I'm kinda sad about him because I really like Great Baggy, but he's very bland. I have to recognize that. And the problem is that Monster Hunter Rise did an awful job with Great Baggy because they neutered him and did not make anything out of his good trait that he had in Troy Ultimate. Because in Troy Ultimate, Great Baggy is like actually a threat. Like, Great Baggy is so funny in Troy Ultimate, but in Rise he's absolutely irrelevant. Beetlejuice, I talked about it before. Rastaramboros, same idea. Bubble Gypsaros is like weird. It's definitely weird. Great Froggy is the same boat as Great Braggy. Berserk Scabra, it's a low rank. It's a early G rank monster that appeared only in one game, so like doomed to be lost. Blood Orange Pishaten, that's the same thing as Aura Somnacant, honestly. Gendrome, it's probably the same thing as Iodrome. It's just that Gendrome is way less frustrating because it's encountered earlier and therefore it's going to be weaker. And also because Gendrome is like, it actually doesn't look that dog shit compared to the other drones. Like, I think of the base drones, I think it's the best looking one because it has a good coating and it has an interesting face compared to the other three. Copper Banganga only appeared in G rank of a very old game. Same for Ash Ketchawacha. Redamazuros, I already explained it. Plumdemo Emitor appeared very rarely, and it's kinda it for the idea behind Plumdemo Emitor. Like, idea. Some monsters that may not be that interesting may express a very interesting idea and therefore be offsetting their bad traits by the fact that they are a bold attempt at doing something. Like, a lot of people hate writing Gammoth because they find it too easy or too boring. But like, Gammoth is still a very interesting idea because you're fighting a fucking mammoth. Terra Shogun Terra Plumbame Emitor is just Emitor but with a Diablo skull. I know that he fights differently. I haven't fought him in either Freedom Unite or for Ultimates, but are those traits really that good? I don't know. Magmadron is there just because it's kind of dog shit. It has good gear, but it's a very bad idea. Like, here it's a clear sign of an idea just going wrong. Because, like, okay, you can imagine that. The problem is that Ignactor exists, which, sure enough, they don't have the same fight, but you get to have a weirder version of Almudron's fight, and Almudron is not really that light. Magma Almudron was not starting off a good start, and the problem is that it's really hard to really that monster, I think. Because the whole idea behind it just doesn't really work. Terra Shogun Senator, it's like only appeared in G rank of a game that released that's probably older than certain. I mean, I've played with someone who was like 14 years old playing Monster Hunter. Terra Shogun Senator is older than them, so yeah. And it hasn't appeared ever since Illuminate. And the first Elder Dragon is Thunder Serpent Nawa. I think Nawa is just a victim of context, but that's funny because it's not context within its own game, though sort of. But it's mostly context within how it existed, with Rise being a very underwhelming game and also a rushed game because of COVID, where they couldn't drop a full game. They had to go for a not so full game. And therefore Nawa was like, it's here, it's definitely here, but it's definitely the way it exists has been shaped by COVID, which is very sad to see. Crimson Group Echo hasn't appeared, like it appeared in 2 games. It's like a less worse version of the Steel Uragan take, but still not the best thing ever. Volvidon, I'm honestly surprised. A lot of people just think Volvidon is weak and not interesting. I like Volvidon, but I have to agree with the fact that he's not the most thrilling. Like, Volvidon is, I think, a good monster. It's just very unlikely to be the best monster for someone, because his good traits don't go that high, but his bad traits don't go that low. It's just rather average. And this bounces back to the thing I was talking about earlier about the fact that it's a specific kind of popularity poll, and that simply those monsters aren't that many people's favorites. That's it. Snowbear and Legombi, which is the same as Volvidon. Oh, I had in French for AFK Journey. So Ruby Bezarios appeared in like 1 game, I think. Megastrap Zemtrios, I've already talked about it. with the other two, Ash Ketchawacha and the Desert Zeldas. Anyway, I am growing tired, I want to sleep, so I'm going to sleep.